Welcome back to another edition of Force Friday, where we talk about Star Wars theories, characters, concepts, comparisons, analyzations, collectibles, and more. And today we're going to do another wish list. Now, for those that are new to the channel or new to this video series, we've been covering all of the films, and afterwards we'll be covering the animated series and giving our top 10 wish list of characters that we hope are produced in the 1/12 scale. I say in the title, Black Series, I really mean 1/12. Preferably for me, I wish it was SH Figuarts, but I will take whatever because I do feel like Black Series is operating at a very high frequency. And with Toy Fair popping up tomorrow, maybe we'll see some exciting reveals. It's kind of a timely episode, I suppose. Then in a year's time, we'll come back and revisit the series, take away characters, add characters as need be, and kind of keep it ongoing annually in regards to what's been announced or produced. So today we're going to cover Solo, not my favorite Star Wars film by far, but a fun one to watch nonetheless, with an interesting array of characters. But before we get started, I think it is very important to state Hasbro really got this one right. They didn't produce a ton of characters for it, but they hit all the high notes. They gave you the core cast of this movie. There's nothing about this movie that leaves me really longing for anything. Unlike Rogue One, which we'll get to next time, the Black Series covered the core gang of heroes, for lack of a better term, and the major villain, along with a hero that you could disguise as troop support and an additional trooper. I honestly think it was the perfect array of figures, and for that, they deserve credit. With that being said, we do have to come up with a list of 10, even though we're going to be hard-pressed to do so, and most of them will be supporting characters. We're going to do it, because if you don't ask for it, you're never going to get it. My number 10 choice is going to be the immigration officers. The visual guide says, on heavily populated worlds, the Empire finds it more efficient to simply induct existing security personnel into the Imperial fold, rather than replacing them outright with military personnel. These immigration officers are typically locals granted training, equipment, and uniforms that allow them to order their neighbors about in the name of the Empire. I'm always kind of down for more Imperial support figures, whether they be officers or troopers or security or like those mechanics from episode 4 or whatever, like just anything that sort of fleshes out those environments, I'm generally up for. Obviously, it's not the most exciting cast to have, but I can see something like this in a 2-pack exclusive set to somewhere, and with the amount of exclusives they like to do every year, it seems more and more feasible, but I'd be up for something like this. And to be fair, you could throw in some of the Imperial officers that we see with the long trench coats on that mud planet. Once again, just more sauce, really, on your Imperial setup. And we're going to kind of stay in that same pocket for our number 9 choice. One of the frustrating things to me about Solo is the villain. I'm not crazy about Voss in this movie. I'm not crazy about the design. I love the actor, but it just doesn't work for me on a number of levels. That aside, for the sake of a display, it's very difficult and challenging to find a place for him. I currently have him in a side spot of Jabba's palace along with another Solo figure because honestly, I just don't know what to do with him. I would love to put him in his quarters of his ship, but it's going to be a very lonely display. And you're going to once again sacrifice a lot of space for a minor payoff in regards to logistics, so it becomes problematic. Therefore, my number 9 would be the ship security. According to the Visual Dictionary, Dryden employs a number of Hyloban goons to serve as the yacht's security enforcers. Tat Ra is perhaps the most approachable of the sour-faced lot. He serves as an attendant, checking guest weaponry before they are allowed to ascend from the docking vestibule into the First Light's common areas. And once again, this is one of those things where they could produce one, they're probably going to sell 2 for every one they make, and it would be nice to have some variation amongst them, obviously, but we know how collectors are, we know how troop building can be. I think it's a quick turnaround money-wise, and obviously probably low on the priority level, and I can't blame them for that. It is just kind of somewhat frustrating to have Voss and really have no appropriate place for him to go, unless you had all the space in the world to just sort of donate an entire shelf just for him, but it does seem like an awful lot to ask, in my opinion. My number 8, the Pike Gang. Now, we did get 3 3/4 representations of some of this stuff at the 5 POA level, but nothing in the 6-inch. I think these characters have super cool designs. For one, Pike Syndicate are a gang based out of Obadiah, a world not far from Kessel. The Pike's proximity let them muscle into the Kessel spice racket and strike a deal with King Yaruba of Kessel. The gang is the sole exploiter of the resources harvested from the sacrifice side of the planet. But they have that one guy that's like always vaping, and then he's like holding the keys. Something cool and kind of wicked about his design. And obviously, a lot of this stuff, once again, is low priority. But if we're talking about what we'd like to see produced from this film, these would come in at around number 8 for me. And it also allows you to get more characters out of the Clone Wars, since that's where they were originally introduced. So it's kind of a twofer in that regard. And in short, I'd kind of just be up for it. I think there's a lot of stuff Hasbro could do here in regards to some of the tricks of the trade that they like to use, namely dry brushing and washes, which they like to dump on these Black Series figures. And I think these are character designs that could lend themselves to those sorts of techniques. So what I'm basically saying is it'd be an easy way to make a good looking figure for them. My number 7 would be the Carillion Thugs. The visual dictionary goes on to say Moloch's favored goons are Rebolt and Psyche. Pairs competition with one another to prove who is the toughest and uses the White Worm Enforcer. Though Rebolt is currently the better animal handler, Psyche is quickly catching up. So the reason why I would throw these guys on the list is because they did produce Moloch, and he is a very cool looking character. He's not really able to do much because of the amount of robes that he has on, but he is a very cool and dynamic looking character. Once again, much like Voss, it would be cool to have him flanked by these two along with one of those hounds. Again, I see this as more of an exclusive if they were ever to do it in a box set form with 2 figures and the hound sold at almost like the dewback level in regards to price point, which would be jagged pills for some to swallow. But I don't have a whole lot of sense and I would let it go probably. But, you know, much like the choices that we've talked about so far, it's really about building the environment in regards to supporting cast with these characters. And it looks like another set of characters where you could just dry brush the heck out of them and you're going to get a big return on your investment. It could make Hasbro look like a champ at really nailing a design that doesn't take a whole lot of effort and is kind of within their wheelhouse. Plus, I do kind of wish we had more creatures and beasts of burden from Star Wars. I feel like they're kind of characters in and of themselves, so I'd definitely be down to see the hounds. My number 6 choice would be Solo himself. You could use the same head sculpt. It would be the Carillion look with the vest as opposed to the jacket. Maybe you could sell him along with the speeder. I think that would probably be the smart way to do it and the most enticing way to do it. Once again, I don't think you'd have to do much work in regards to the Hasbro side of things in order to produce it. You can sell it at a decent price point, and I think people would be on it because I think people do want vehicles that don't take up too much space. The Enfys Nest is another great example with that speeder that she has, the Cloud Rider thing, whatever. It would be like a killing of 2 birds with 1 stone kind of thing. You get an extra vehicle, you get an extra figure with a different look from that series. It is the main character, so it probably sells better. I'm not really sure, honestly. And you could now have him on a scene with Moloch and the 2 hound handlers, as it were. My number 5 choice is Lady Proxima. Not exactly sure how they would do it, but I do think it would be interesting to see them attempt it. I don't think it would be impossible, and I wonder if it would have to include almost one of those diorama stages that we've seen them do in the past regarding Black Series that are kind of statues mixed with a diorama scene that you could then incorporate your 6-inch figures into and kind of use it as a combination for a display. And I think Lady Proxima could be effective in that state. I also think that once again, with Hasbro's wheelhouse of washes and sculpt work, this is a character that could really come to life with a minimal amount of effort on their part. And I don't think it would take much engineering either. You would really just have to find a way to get her to articulate or at least express herself in some way and have it be stable and balanced, which is where the display stand or the diorama aspect would come in. My number 4 is Lando in his alternate costume, card playing Lando. And honestly, you could throw in, if you were able to do that, you could throw in any of the card players that were at that table and I'd probably be in for any of them, but they wouldn't necessarily reach my top 10 without this look. To me, the Lando that we got is cool. It's probably the most iconic from the film. Maybe, I'm not sure though entirely, but I always thought the white suit look on Lando felt the most Lando, for lack of a better term. Like he felt like he was really killing it, really in his bag. Plus, once again, they already have the head sculpt. They already have all that mapped out. The engineering probably wouldn't be that different. It could probably, for the most part, be mostly a repaint, maybe with a slight retool. Quick turnaround, quick profits. And I say that not knowing how these figures sold, but I feel like by and large, they sold well. It's funny, at my local Walmarts, I don't even see any Black Series anymore. Like everything's gone. But just another example of a quick turnaround for them and how it could be successful and could allow a different look of a classic character that we all adore. Now, speaking of different outfits, let's stay in that bag and move on to our next choice, which is Kira. And I would prefer her in that dress. This way I can incorporate that into Voss's sort of quarters along with some security detail. And now you're starting to build a display. And I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't be mad if they threw the singer and the little frog guy in there, but I don't want to ask for too much, not on our first 10. But once again, they have a lot of the sculpting for the face done already. They'd have to redo some stuff for the hair. Obviously a completely different body, but they might be able to use whatever they use to tool that body for future Padme designs, just in regards to engineering. It's a classy look for her. It's a sexy look for her. It also fleshes out that environment, and you could even do like a hologram mall at that point, and I'd be in on that, whereas right now I probably wouldn't have much interest in it. So there's just a lot of options. That look for her just opens up a lot of doors, in my opinion. My number 2 choice are the Cloud Riders, and honestly, I would take any of them. One of my problems, once again, is that I have this Enfys Nest figure, but I don't really have an appropriate place to put her. She's kind of just sitting in limbo currently on a piece of furniture between couches. But I would do a whole display if I could flesh out her crew. I think they all have super interesting designs. I think they all look dynamic. I think they're one of those kind of examples where the more you have of them, the better they start looking, because it's kind of about how that crew displays as a whole rather than individually. I could see a box set of these with at least 4 if I had to choose the top 4, but I would prefer to have the whole gang. Once again, I feel like this is right in their wheelhouse. It would require simple engineering, not a lot of articulation, a lot of sculpt work, a lot of washes, and a lot of dry brushes to pull it off. Most of the faces are covered, so you don't even have to nail that, and I think that that would do it. My number 1 should come as no surprise. It's also a Cloud Rider, but I don't want him with the box set. I want him to have his own special place, and that's Tubes, who in Solo takes off his masked face and is revealed to be Two Tubes, the character that I really wish we got in any way, shape, or form aside from the 3 3/4 5 POA figure we did receive. I want that guy bad. It's my number 1. Shouldn't come to anybody as any surprise. So, with that being said, we'll check back on this in a year, see how it's doing. Rogue One is coming up next. That's the one that I have the most requests from of any Star Wars film ever created. So it'll be hard to choose just 10. Whereas this one is challenging because Hasbro really did a good job of fleshing out that movie with the core cast of characters. Fantastic work. But if I needed figures from this, a lot of them would be supporting cast. And honestly, I'd be okay if we didn't get them. It's just if I had to choose, this is what I would choose. Some of these I would like. Two Tubes especially. Lady Proxima as well. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.